Welcome to another session of Understanding Human Anatomy. In this video, I'm going to start a series talking about the peritoneal cavity. And the peritoneal cavity is somewhat confusing. It's a complicated structure that one really can't understand unless we see how it develops. So I'm going to approach the peritoneal cavity from an embryological point of view and try and show you how structures come to lie where they do. I want to start with something we'll see roughly the end of the third week, beginning of fourth week of gestation. And that is a trilaminar disc. So we're going to start with drawing in the surface ectoderm. Now, the ectoderm is the germ layer that forms the outer surface of the body. So this blue line is the surface ectoderm. The ectoderm invaginates in the midline and forms a tube, the neural tube. And so let me then sketch in the neural tube here. And it is an invagination of the surface ectoderm, so it's still ectoderm. And it will form our nervous system. The endoderm is the inner lining of the body, and I will draw it in here. Remember, we're looking at a disc, so we have these two germ layers. The endoderm, and the endoderm will form the digestive tract and everything that develops from the digestive tract. So the yellow layer is the endoderm. Now there will be three areas of mesoderm. And mesoderm is the germ layer that's in the middle. So I want to start with putting in the mesoderm that lies immediately adjacent to the neural tube. And I'll put it in on both sides. This is called the paraaxial mesoderm. And the paraaxial mesoderm will form the skeleton, the muscle, and blood vessels, etc., that form the core of the body. In other words, the axial skeleton, axial muscles, and the associated structures. Next to the paraaxial mesoderm is an area that's referred to as the intermediate mesoderm. I'm just going to draw it in as kind of a circle, a blob here. The intermediate mesoderm. The intermediate mesoderm will form the kidneys, it will form the gonads, and it will form part of the adrenal cortex. So the intermediate mesoderm will give rise to our urinary system and structures associated with the urinary system. The third area of mesoderm is termed the lateral plate mesoderm. And the lateral plate mesoderm isn't a mass as we've seen with the other mesodermal structures. And it's split into two. So if I draw it, I'm going to start here and draw one area of it going out towards the ectoderm and the other area going out towards the endoderm. And on the other side, we'll do the same. And that leaves a space in the middle. Okay. So, this is lateral plate mesoderm. And the lateral plate mesoderm is divided into two areas. And the two areas are the somatopleur and the splanchnopleur. The part of lateral plate mesoderm that is associated with the ectoderm is called the somatopleur. And the part of lateral plate mesoderm associated with the endoderm is called the splanchnopleur. So if we draw arrows in here to the two parts of the lateral plate, we have somatopleur and we have the splanchnopleur. And in between the somatopleur and the splanchnopleur is the beginning of our internal body cavities. It's the coelom. And the coelom, we'll see, will form the body cavities, and what we're going to be talking about today, the peritoneal cavity. Now, this is a stage when the embryo is just a flattened disc. Obviously, it can't stay that way. We have to round up. And we have folds. We have folds at the head and tail end of the embryo, and we have folds along the lateral edges of the embryo. And I'm just going to indicate what's going to happen on the lateral folds here by drawing in some arrows, and that this edge wraps around like so. This edge wraps around from the other side, and they meet in the middle, so that we will have a complete circle of endoderm, a complete circle of ectoderm, and this coelom, this cavity, will also be wrapped around. The splanchnopleur will stay around the endoderm, and the somatopleur will stay around the ectoderm, leaving a space in the middle, the cavity. So in the next slide, we'll take a look at the results of this folding. Now, after the folding has been completed, we'll have a tubular type embryo. So let me start by drawing in the ectoderm, like so. And we'll also add a neural tube here, the primitive nervous system, and then we'll have a notochord. So let me add the notochord, which is the primitive backbone of the developing embryo, here. And then we'll sketch in the paraxial mesoderm, and on the other side and next we'll put the intermediate mesoderm, which is at this stage would still not be differentiated. Again, the major structure coming from the intermediate mesoderm is the kidney, like so. And the endoderm during the folding rounds up to become a primitive gut here. So let's put in some labels. The ectoderm, the neural tube, the notochord, the paraxial mesoderm, the intermediate mesoderm, the endoderm, like so. And for now, we're just going to call the structure at the endoderm as forming the gut. It really would not have differentiated into the various organs yet. Now, another structure I need to draw in is the aorta. And the aorta is the primary artery bringing blood to the embryo's body. Like so. Now we can draw in the lateral plate mesoderm. And remember that we have the somatopleur, which is adjacent and adherent to the ectoderm, which I'm drawing in here, and it will reflect back along the wall like so. But then it will reflect down to become the splanchnopleur around the endoderm, here, then back up, and it would be back on the body wall around to complete the cycle. So that This is the somatopleur. Wrapping around the body wall, and then we will have the splanchnopleur, and the splanchnopleur wraps around the primitive gut. Now we have some lateral plate mesoderm that is suspending the gut from the dorsal body wall. It's connecting the somatopleur and the splanchnopleur. This area will form the mesentery. Like so. And the mesentery, besides suspending the gut from the dorsal body wall, will also be the lifeline for the gut, because the arteries and veins and other structures that come down to supply the gut pass through the mesentery. Now, in the adult, the somatopleur and the splanchnopleur will form the peritoneum, and the somatopleur will form the parietal peritoneum, and the splanchnopleur will form the visceral peritoneum. The space between them, which was the coelom, will become the peritoneal cavity. Now, structures such as the primitive gut that we have here that have a mesentery, that are suspended from the body wall by a mesentery, these are called peritoneal structures. So peritoneal structures have a mesentery. Structures that are attached to the body wall that are not surrounded by peritoneum, that do not have a mesentery. These structures are said to be retroperitoneal. So the intermediate mesoderm here would be retroperitoneal. And retroperitoneal means outside of the peritoneum. And retroperitoneal structures will be on the body wall, but they will have a surface bulging into the body cavity that will have a layer of parietal peritoneum over a portion of that surface. But they won't be surrounded by peritoneum. They will not have visceral peritoneum. And so structures like the intermediate mesoderm and also the aorta would be retroperitoneal. So structures with a mesentery are peritoneal structures. Structures that do not have a mesentery and are fixed to the body wall are retroperitoneal structures. In the next video, we'll talk about how peritoneal structures can come to be retroperitoneal in the adult. Thank you for your attention.